You ever watch your whole life get turned upside down in a single afternoon? Let me tell you, I have, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a shiny office, everyone's eyes fixed on you, and the man you once trusted hands you a check in front of the whole staff, as if your dignity could be bought for 100 grand. You know what I mean? Yeah, that happened. And if you'd asked me that day where I'd be 5 years later, well, you wouldn't have believed the answer, and honestly, neither would I. My name's Claire Bennett, and if you'd met me back then, you probably wouldn't have noticed me at all. Just a quiet secretary at Holston Global in downtown Austin. Always 10 minutes early, coffee in hand, notebook under my arm, the type people rely on but never really see. I was good at fading into the background, at getting things done without asking for much, and maybe that's why I never saw the storm coming. It started with one stupid mistake. A single night after the company holiday party, too much champagne, too much loneliness, and Richard Holston, the CEO with the world's most dangerous smile, standing just a little too close by the bar. I wasn't looking for trouble, but somehow trouble found me, and one impulsive night turned into 3 lines on a pregnancy test that I thought about keeping it quiet. I really did. But some truths deserve to be spoken, and maybe I was naive, thinking Richard would care. When I told him, alone, after hours, he just stared at me like I was speaking a language he'd never heard before, then laughed, all cold and sharp, and accused me of trying to trap him. Said I wanted a promotion, a payout, as if I hadn't already lost enough. Next thing I knew, he had a checkbook in his hand. $100,000 to disappear, no drama, no lawyers, just silence. But I didn't take it. Not that day. Not any day. By morning, the whole office knew. He called a meeting, pointed at me as if I was some kind of warning, and fired me on the spot, my things already packed into a box. Picture of my mom, sunflower mug, all my little pieces of normal life. Security didn't even touch me. Shame did the work for them. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I saw my reflection, not broken, just changed. And I promised myself then that this child, these children, would never be a secret or a shame. Next stop, a battered trailer at the edge of East Austin, where the porch light flickered, the AC rattled, and my mom, Margaret, waited inside, her body tired from years of dialysis, but her voice as sharp as ever. I didn't have the heart to tell her what had happened, not yet, not when I could barely admit it to myself. I spent my days hunting for jobs, dialing numbers, hearing the same old polite rejections, my stomach getting heavier, my savings thinner, until the only work left was night cleaning, scrubbing offices, emptying bins in buildings I used to walk through in heels. Yeah, life's got a sense of humor. Then came the first real twist, a nurse, an ultrasound, and the words, "Congratulations, Mom, you're having triplets." I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling and promised all 3 of them, Jacob, Eli, and Luke, though I didn't know their names yet, that we would survive. Every dollar mattered. Every sleepless night was for them, not me. My mom tried to help, but her health kept fading. More coughs, more silence. And then one Thursday, I came home and found her still in bed, gone quietly, holding the rosary I'd given her. I buried her under a patchy oak tree with just a handful of neighbors and a quilt she'd been stitching for the babies. After that, I moved through the days like a ghost. I worked, I worried, and when my water broke early, 7 weeks too early, I drove myself to the hospital. No suitcase, no plan, just an envelope of emergency contacts and the hope someone would care. The doctors moved fast, and when I woke up, all 3 babies were alive, tiny and fierce and more beautiful than I could have imagined. I named them right then. Jacob with his stubborn little scowl, Eli who wrapped his fingers around mine and wouldn't let go, and Luke, quiet, wide-eyed, like he'd already seen this world before. Let me back up a sec. If you think that's where the story ends, you're dead wrong. The hospital bills nearly broke me, and within weeks, I was back to cleaning offices at night, bottles in the fridge, pacifiers on the floor, always one kid awake, the others dreaming. A neighbor, Andrea, helped out a sweet old lady with arthritis who refused to take a dime. "Yeah, they're going to do something big one day," she said, and I laughed. But sometimes I let myself believe her. When I wasn't working, I pulled out my old laptop, dusted off a half-finished personal finance app, Lucent Budget. I called it back in college, and started building it again, line by line, between bottle feeds. One day, an alumni newsletter landed in my inbox. Houston Startup Bridge, $25,000 grant for women-led tech, deadline in 3 days. I'd never moved so fast, coding, pitching, recording a video while the boys slept, and I submitted with just 7 minutes to spare. When the call came, offering me the spot and the grant, I cried, not from fear, but from hope. Packed my kids, a couple of suitcases, and Andrea into a motel in Houston, where the air conditioner barely worked, and spent my nights pitching my app in a glass-walled incubator, surrounded by 20-somethings in sneakers, all wondering who brought triplets to a startup. The IT was in that space. I met Grayson, silver-haired, quiet, board member with eyes that missed nothing. He saw the numbers from my tiny beta test, 91% retention among low-income families at the shelter, and he offered to invest, not for what Lucent Budget was, but for who it was for people no one saw, for moms like mine, for me. And that's when everything changed. The second act? A twist I didn't see coming. A competitor report landed on my desk, Holston Global at the top, spiraling, bad press, lawsuits, revenue down, Richard losing his grip. I stayed up that night, wrestling with ghosts, then called Grayson. "I want a steak," I said, "but I want to stay anonymous." 2 weeks later, I signed the papers, 42%, enough to make decisions, enough to be impossible to ignore. No one knew my name. Not yet. Then came the invitation, National Finance Innovation Summit, Boston. Holston Global's new headquarters, Richard as keynote. I brought my boys, my nannies, my friend, and when I stood on that stage and told the truth about building Lucent Budget from a motel with 3 newborns, about designing for dignity, not profit, I watched Richard's face change, the recognition and fear settling in. And when the journalist asked if my sons were related to Mr. Holston, I let the silence answer, their eyes speaking for themselves. The final showdown, legacy versus innovation. The moderator fumbling as my boys, all matching shirts and untucked hair, called Daddy from the back. I claimed my sons, then I claimed the company, announcing right there that Lucent Budget now owned a controlling stake in Holston Global, 51%. Richard stood and left. No words, no drama, just the quiet of a man realizing his story was no longer the only one in the room. That's how I built a new life. Not by taking revenge, but by building something better. Holston Lucent, they call it now, but to me, it's just proof that dignity outlasts shame. I met Richard once more, handed back his uncashed check, told him I never needed his money, only my own integrity. My boys walked out with me, and this time, it was my name people whispered about. That's her, the woman who owns it all. And when I finally stepped away, bought a house in Vermont with a wild garden and a porch that caught the sunset, I started giving back, free coding classes, childcare grants, a fund for single moms who just need someone to believe in them. Because no one makes it alone. And now, when my kids tell me they're proud of me, I know I built something real, not just a company, but a life.so. Tell me, if you'd been handed that check, would you have cashed it or built a whole new door? I want to hear your story, your take on what's right and what's fair. Drop a comment below, share this with someone who needs a little hope today. And if you want more stories that hit home, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. This isn't just my story. It's for anyone who's ever had to start over. And trust me, you can rise, even if you have to do it quietly.